We're gonna work on some Godot UI stuff. This is gonna be kind of like the finishing touch on the game. So we're gonna add a splash screen and a heads-up display. One thing that we have to look at is I had to make some changes to the Godot script for the heads-up display. So just as a reminder, I'll put this link in the video description as well, but this link here, Godot template, has the sort of project template. And I made a pretty small change to the script here. So if you look at this change, you can kind of see what I did. I just like changed the way this is set up a little bit to make it easier to use. But it's not, I just updated it today. You can see I changed it 2 hours ago. So if you downloaded the project template previously, you'll have to replace the script. You can either download the whole thing and just move that script, or you could just grab the script from here. So if you go to scripts and then go to HUD HUD, you can just basically copy and paste this into the script. And so we're going to cover that second, but I'll show you guys how to do that when we get there. So I'll put a link to this in the video description, but I just wanted to mention that at the beginning, just to keep that in mind. But what we're going to start with is sort of a start menu. This is going to be very bare bones. I'm just going to use sort of the built-in stuff in Godot. You can obviously make this look different ways. You can add your own art. You can do more with it. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to go over some of the basic elements. So I'm going to start by making like a start screen or start menu. For this scene, this is just going to be a 2D scene. So instead of creating a 3D scene like I normally do, I'm going to use the green button here, which is for user interface scenes. So I'm going to click on that. This is going to create a new 2D scene. Notice that we're in the 2D mode over here. So we haven't really used the 2D mode, but we will use it today to create our user interface. I'm going to start by renaming this control node. I'm going to rename this menu. We're not going to have multiple menus, but if you had multiple menus in your game, you might want to name it like main menu or something like that. And then I'm going to save this. I'm just hitting Command S, and I'm going to go to scenes, and I'm going to make a new folder here for my UI. So I'm going to call this UI and just save this in here. I like to keep it organized. It doesn't really matter where you put it, but I kind of like to have my scenes folder have like my components, my UI, and then my main levels. For some reason I have this like Blender model in here. I forget why that's there, but we'll ignore that for now. But that's generally how I like to have my folders organized. It doesn't really matter, but it's nice to be able to find things. So that's why I put the UI in here. So for our UI, Godot has this like whole templating system for the user interface, and you can see it's all highlighted green. So that makes it easy to see like there's these extra buttons up here, which is kind of nice. It's kind of similar to like HTML, if you've ever done like HTML stuff where you have like nodes or kind of like HTML elements that contain other nodes, and that's what determines a lot of the layout. So it's a little bit tricky to use at first, but there's nodes for like everything that you would want to do. So just keep that in mind. A lot of times you have to add extra nodes when you might not think to add an extra node. The main thing that we want in our menu, we're just going to have like an image as like a splash screen, and we'll have a couple buttons. And so I'll show you kind of what happens. I'm not going to like set up the menu or the layout right away. I'm going to add some stuff in there, so we'll see what's going to happen, and then we'll go back over and fix the layout. So to add something into my UI scene, I do the same thing I do in my 3D scene. I click on the plus button. But now what we're going to look at is this control section. So this is in a different area. It's still in the main node area, but it's not in node 3D anymore. It's in this control section, which is under this like canvas item thing. So it's being drawn on this like 2D canvas instance. So inside the control section, you can see there's a lot of different containers, which we will review or we'll go over. There's buttons. So there's different buttons you can use. We're just going to use a default button. And then there's like a input, like text edit. You can add a color rect for users to change colors of things. You can do an item list. You can do labels. There's a whole bunch of different stuff in here. We're just going to use a few of these things. So, for example, if I just want to show an image, I can use a texture rect. So I'm going to create a texture rect, and this will be kind of like my splash image. So I'll just call this splash. You can put whatever you want in here. I'm just going to put this icon here, just because it is already there, and I don't want to take up more time. But if you have an image that you want to use for your game, or you want to take a screenshot of your game and use that as the splash scene, you can put whatever you want there. So I'm just going to use that as my image. Now I'm going to add a button. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to search for button. You can see there are different types of buttons. So for example, if you wanted to make your own button art, you could use a texture button, which allows you to use different art for each texture. For like, hovering over the button and clicking on the button, you can add different art. I'm just going to use a default button just in the interest of time. So I'm going to click create. And in that button, I'm going to name this the start button. So when the user clicks this button, the game will start. Notice that we don't see anything there because I haven't added any text to the button. So if I go over to the inspector, you can see the main button thing here. And I can add some text here. So I'm just going to put start. And now you can see what the button looks like. But you're also going to notice that the button and the icon are hovering over each other. That's not really what we want. I can move them around, but you don't really want to design your user interface this way, because if you just move these elements around, they're going to be absolutely positioned, which means that any size window or any size platform that your user is playing the game in, it's just going to be up in this corner over here. So it's not going to look very good on different resolutions and different sizes and stuff like that. So we want to use some layout items to move these guys around. Another thing that I can do with my button, it's going to be very small. So you might want to change the styling. This is a little harder than it seems like it should be, but if I scroll down to this control node here, you're going to notice there's a theme section where you can create like a whole theme that determines how your UI looks. We're not going to do that right now because that's going to take a lot of time. But there is a section for theme overrides where you can override specific values. And one of those specific values is font sizes. So if I want to make this font larger, I can click on the font size here and I can double it. And now I have a larger font. So you don't have to do that, but the font will probably be pretty small. That's a good way to change it. You can also add a font file here if you want to download like a Google font or something like that, or an Open Game Art font. So you can, change the styles here. I'm not going to go over all these things, but there's some basic stuff you can do there. Okay, so now let's set up our layout. So I want to organize, actually I'm going to make a second button first. So I'm going to duplicate my start button and make a quit button. And I'll change this to quit. Those are the two buttons I'm going to have in this interface. You could have more buttons if you wanted like an instruction scene or you wanted other stuff. But I'm just going to have those basic buttons. And then I'm going to add a little bit of text with some more instructions a little bit later. But right now I want to set up my layout. So in Godot, most of the layout items are in this container section. And they have like very specific functionality. So you can see like a center container will let me center stuff. A box container will let me organize things in a box. There's VBox and HBox, so a vertical box or a horizontal box. And those are kind of the main things that I want to use. There's some other stuff in here, but those are the main ones that I want to use. So I want to put my icon and my buttons next to each other. So I'm going to use an HBox for that. And notice I can add the HBox in here, but everything is still over here because they're not inside of the HBox. So if I drag these in here, then it's going to just like organize them. And they're just going to go in whatever order they are in this HBox container. So whatever's first will be on the left, and then next and next after that. So I could just put the whole thing like this. Another thing I could do is I could add another box in here. So I could go here to the HBox container and add a VBox. And I could put two of my elements in the VBox. So if I wanted my buttons to kind of be next to each other like that, or on top of each other, that's what I would use a VBox for. And now the VBox is one element of this HBox. So to make more complex layouts, you basically just add more containers. Now you can see that this image is stretching to fit the size of these buttons. You probably don't want your image to stretch like that. So you can change stuff over here, but we could also add another container. So a center container is good for that. If I use a center container and I move that up here and then put my image in there, now the center container fills up the space and the image is centered in the center container. So the center container is really useful for centering elements or adding that extra space. Another thing I might want to do is center the whole thing. Right now it's kind of tied up to this left corner, but I could add another center container and put this whole thing in there. So I can go in here, add another center container, and now I can throw this whole HBox in here. So then with the center container, if I want it to be centered in the screen, that's when I want to use this menu up here. This is the anchor and offset values. If I hover down here, it kind of visualizes the different ways that I can set this up. I can put it over here. I can put it right here. I can make it fill up the whole window. You can make it kind of fill up just the middle part of the window or the top or the bottom. Whatever you think looks good. I'll probably just do that for now. And that's basically it. If you want to have other stuff in there, like some instructions, we can add that. But let's set up our code first, and then we'll maybe add a couple other things. So to make all of this actually work, we need to use a script. And there's a script in the scripts folder, which we can add to the main menu node up here. So if I scroll down and click on the script folder here and type in menu, you're going to find a menu script. And if we click on that script, you can see there's not much in here. There's just a few lines of code. So we need to add what's called the start level scene. So we need to know which scene we want to start when we click the start button. And then there's a function to quit the game. And then there's also a function here that makes the mouse visible. So when you're using the user interface, obviously you need to see the mouse so you can click on stuff. So it's pretty straightforward. We just have to connect our buttons, which are in this VBox container, to these functions here. And we're going to use our signals to do that. So I'll start with the start button. I'll click on that button and go to the node section. And then there's a signal for when the user presses the button. It's just pressed. So I'll double click on that. And then you can see that this signal matches on start pressed. We want to go to on start pressed. So I'll just click connect. And you should see that green button or that green arrow show up. If you don't see that, then let me know and we can fix it. Then we have our quit button. This is exactly the same thing, but we're connecting to quit. So I'm going to double click pressed and then make sure we're going to on quit pressed and make sure we're going to the main menu script and click connect. Okay, so now the one thing we have to change is we have to go back to our start button and we have to tell it what level to load when the user clicks it. So actually this isn't in our start button. Sorry, this is in the main menu. So in the main menu, there's a start level scene. And we can open this up and go to level 1 and click open. And so now that scene will open when we start the main menu. Okay, so almost everything is good. There's one issue that we're gonna run into, which I'm gonna show you guys. So you'll see this happen and then you'll know how to fix it. When I run the scene, oh, actually it's working fine. Oh no, this is with the HUD, never mind. We'll see this issue later, but for now, this looks fine. I can click start and it should load this first level. So there we go. And then if I click quit, okay, now we've got the issue. Okay. I think the issue is that we hadn't run the game yet. Anyway, I'm going to hit Command period to escape, or you can hit F8 on Windows to get out of the game window. So the reason that's happening is because of this setting on this main node under mouse. There's a setting called mouse filter. This is a relatively new Godot setting. And the default setting is stop, but we don't want this for our whole interface. We just want this for our buttons. So to fix this, we just have to go to pass. So for mouse filter, we just click pass. So now we should be able to click, although I'm not seeing the mouse. Okay, I might need to do some more debugging. I thought I had figured that out. Let me make sure. Okay. Yeah, I thought I'd figured that out, but it looks like that's still an issue. But we'll fix that later. Anyway, if we want to get out of here, we just hit Option Escape, and then you can quit, or you can start the game. And yeah, that's basically our main menu. I'm not exactly sure why this isn't working exactly right, but we'll fix that later. Okay. That's our main menu. The next thing we're going to set up is our HUD, or our heads up display. And so we're going to do a new control scene or UI scene, and then we're going to add that on top of our existing 3D scene. Okay, so I'm going to click the plus and add a new user interface scene. And I'm just going to rename this HUD, or heads up display. And I'm going to save this in my UI scene. So when I hit Command S, I'm going to save. I'm already in my UI scene, but just as a reminder, I'm inside scenes and then inside UI. I'm going to save this here. And so for our HUD scene, what we want to have is a display that shows the user how many items they've collected. So for our game, for the game I'm working on, the item is this sort of like, let's see if we can look at the preview. So my item for this scene is this like little juice box guy, or juice bottle. I guess we can't see the preview here, but we can see it. I'll just open up my scene. So yeah, our item is this little juice bottle. And so what we can do is add like a little icon, and then show like a count of how many juice bottles you've collected. So I should have done this earlier, but I'm just gonna make like an image of this juice bottle. Maybe I'll just open it by itself and do a screenshot. So I'll go to juice bottle, and I'll just screenshot from this window. You could probably also like open it in Blender and make like a nice screenshot, but I'm not gonna do that right now. So I'm just gonna screenshot this juice bottle, and I'll just, this is gonna go to my desktop. So I'll go to desktop. Here's that juice bottle. I'll throw this in my textures folder. And I'm just gonna Photoshop this real quick to take out the background. There's probably better ways to do this. Like you could open it in Blender and render out an image, but I'm just gonna do this the quick way. So I'm just gonna select it using the quick select and do a mask. And then I'm gonna save as. Or actually, maybe I can just save the PNG. Will it let me do that? Okay, nice. I don't even have to export. Okay, so I've really quickly made an icon for this. You know, I would probably spend more time making it look good, but this is good enough for this. Okay, so now in my textures, I have my little screenshot. Let's rename this juice bottle. So now I'll go back to my HUD, my heads up display, And so to add in the juice bottle, I just need to add a texture rectangle or texture rect, and then just drag the juice bottle into that texture. This is really big, so we don't want it to be that big. This is actually probably one place where it's okay to scale, but we could also scale it in Photoshop. So maybe I'll do that. I'll go to Photoshop and I'll do export as, and I'll just make it like 64 pixels wide. Make sure it's a PNG and export. And so I'll put this in textures, and I'm just gonna call this juice bottle small so I don't have to overwrite my larger image. And okay, let's see if that looks better. So I'll put the juice bottle small over here. Okay, that's a lot better. So yeah, scaling the 2D image actually isn't that big of a deal, but since I've been saying don't scale stuff, I want to stick to that. So I'm just gonna leave that there. Okay, so this icon sort of represents our juice bottle, and then I'm gonna add what's called a label. So a label is just a UI element where we can put some text, and we're just gonna call this as our juice counter. And I'm gonna put a 0 in here just as an example to start in the text. And I'll do the same thing here. I'll go to theme overrides and font size and make this larger. And maybe I'll make the color match the juice bottle. I have to allow. Okay, I'll get this like yellowy part. Let's make it a little bit brighter. Okay, and then let's do a outline. I don't see that outline appearing. I wonder if there's another. There might be somewhere else where I have to set the outline, but I'll figure that out later. Anyway, now we've got this little counter. We have the same issue here where the image and the text are like layered on top of each other. So again, we need to use layout elements for this. So I'm gonna add a H box, and I'm gonna put both of these guys in the H box. So now they're sitting next to each other. So that looks a little bit better. Obviously I could make this look better, but in the interest of time, I'm just gonna leave this as it is. The other thing that I'm gonna add into this scene is a what I'm gonna call a console. A console is basically just like a text area where you can add messages to the player, like, you know, you need a key, or you need to find something, or whatever messages you want to relay to the player. So I'm gonna add another label for this. And I want this to be in the middle of the scene, so I'm gonna add a center container for this, and then I need to put the label in there. And I'm gonna rename this label console. So now I have my counter and I have my console, and I'm gonna put some text in here just so I can see what it looks like. This is the console. And then I'm gonna center my center container. Okay, so that's what it looks like. It's pretty small. So let's increase the font with our theme overrides again. And so that looks pretty good. So now I can give messages to the player to explain what's going on in the scene. All right, so we're gonna add a script to this. This is pretty basic, but that's basically what I need for my script. So I'm gonna click on the HUD again and scroll down to the script area down here. And I'm gonna type in HUD for HUD. And in our HUD script, if it looks like this is the old script. So remember earlier I said that we had to get a new script for this. So there's two ways to do it. One is you can download the scripts and overwrite the file. But you can also just copy and paste the new script directly in here. So I'm going to select all of this and delete it. And then I'm going to go to the script here. This is the new script on GitHub. And I'll have a link for this in the video description. But I'm just going to click on the file, copy all of this, and paste it in. So this has some more description on how to use it and a slightly simpler setup. Okay, so now if I look at the HUD script, there's two properties here. There's the console and the counter. And so I'm just going to add the console in there. I'm just going to drag it and drop it over there. And I'm going to add my counter over here. So these, now I don't really have to worry about what these are called. I just have to put them in the right place. And that's the basic setup. We have to connect a few more things in our scene, but we're almost ready. We're almost done with our HUD. Also, another thing before I forget is I have to click on the main node, go to mouse, and change the filter to pass, so that we'll be able to use the mouse in the scene. Okay, so we've got our HUD set up. Now to add this into the level, we go over to level 1, and I'm just going to instance the HUD scene into level 1. There's a lot in here, so there's a lot going on, but all I have to do is click on the link button and find the HUD scene that I just created. And it's just going to add it as a 2D scene down here. If I go back to 3D and I run the scene, now we see my little juice icon and the juice count up there. It's not going to work yet because it's not connected, but when we set it up, we'll get that it'll connect there. Okay. We can also connect the console to our portal, but let's do the juice count first. So I have these juice collectibles here. And if we look at our HUD script, basically it's just displaying this apple count, which is just the global value for the apple count. But we need to update that display. So when we collect an item, we just have to basically tell the heads up display to reset this text here, because it only does this when this function is called. So what I can do is connect this signal from the juice. There's an item collected signal, and we can just connect that to our HUD. So if I double click on this and then look for the HUD, the receiver method, the tricky part here is that I named this juice instead of apple. So the receiver method is going to say on juice item collected, but that doesn't exist. If we click on pick, you'll see that the script has something called on collectible item collected, which is just more generic. So we're just going to use that instead. If you have different items and you want to count multiple things, then you would just like make another, label and do something else here. So I'm going to click connect here. And then I'm actually going to double check my juice script because I think I added, so this says juice. So I need to make sure that whatever I'm collecting here, this global.juice count matches what I have in the HUD. So the default is apple count, but I changed it to juice. So if you have something else like coin count or something like that, you just need to make sure that they're the same. So I'm going to copy this juice count here, go back to my HUD and just paste that there. So now I should be able to run this and get the count updated. Okay, we're not seeing it updated. Oh, there it is. Oh, I only connected one signal. Whoops. Okay. So the reason they didn't all work is because I only connected one of them. I think it's this one. No, it's this one. But I need to connect all of them. So, if you have a lot of them, you might want to just what's easier to do actually now that this is connected is just delete the other ones and duplicate it. That'll take less time than connecting all of them. So I'm just going to delete them all and then duplicate this guy and then add them in again. Because this is actually a lot faster than connecting all those signals again. Okay. Now they all have that item collected signal already set up. And so now they should all update the HUD. Okay. So again, this is just one example of like how to connect a collectible item or something in our scene with our user interface. You could do this with all sorts of different things. It doesn't have to be a juice box. You know, it could be enemies, or it could be your lives, or anything else that you can count. Okay, last thing is our portal. We're almost done, but our portal has a setup where it can tell you that you need the key. So right now, the way our portal works is when I walk over here, it doesn't work. And I have to get this key first. And in this scene, the key is right next to the portal. So it's pretty obvious that I can just get the key and then go in the portal. But it might not be obvious if the key is like hidden somewhere. So to fix that, I need the portal to be able to tell the user to look for the key. So what I can do is there's a signal in the portal to update the console. If I connect that to the HUD, it will send messages to the player. So I'm going to double click Update Console, and then I'm going to look for the HUD. And again, this is just for the portal update, but you could do this with anything that you can find in the scene. So this is On Portal Update Console. For some reason, that's not showing up, but I think that is, yeah. So that is right. It's right here. So I'm going to click Pick here and connect. And it's going to send a message. And the message kind of changes depending on how you have things set up. But if you don't have the player confirm turned on, but you do have the required key turned on, it's just going to tell you that you need the key. So now if I go over here, it says you need to find the key. All right. So I found the key. Now I get to go through the portal. So that's basically it. Although the portal is also supposed to... Oh, yeah. Okay, so one more thing that we have to set up for this to work correctly. The portal also has a on-body exited function. So when you exit the portal, that message will go away. All you have to do to make this work is click on the portal, go over to nodes, double-click body exited, and connect that back to the portal. Sorry, there's a lot of steps, but that's everything we need to do. So now this should look a little more normal. So now you'll notice this script, this console message will go away when I leave the portal. Okay. So that's a basic setup. There's obviously lots and lots of variations that you could do there. You don't have to use that if you don't need to use that in your game, but if you want to have a way to communicate with the player just through text, the console is a way to do that. And yeah, that's the basic idea for our user interface. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and we'll do some workshop time. If you guys have questions or want to go over stuff, we can do that. Later in class, we're just going to go over how to export the game, which is relatively easy. So we'll have more workshop time later in class.